Chapter 14. When it comes to love, I'm just another fool. Remus POV. You've been so good for me. He cooed in Sirius's ear, the boy shuddering at the praise, tilting his head back in silent askance, wide eyes pleading for just one more kiss. Soon, Bug. We'll go upstairs soon. I just need to cash up for Dottie. But, the boy began to whine, sucking his lower lip between white teeth as he glanced at the now empty club. I could go upstairs and wait for you, like last time? A low chuckle escaped him before he could stop it, gazing at the glazed state of his partner's face, his needy boy clinging on to whatever part of Remus he'd been allowed. Telltale signs he was teetering on the edge of subspace and had been for some time. It wouldn't take much at all to send him down, and he wasn't going to leave him alone, not like this. No, love bug, not tonight. He smoothed one thumb over the high of his cheekbone, soft orange light casting shadows over his aristocratic features. Because if you go upstairs and touch your pretty little cock without me, if you try to fuck yourself when I've told you not to, well, I don't think you want another punishment, do you, darling? A rapid head shake and panicked eyes prompted the older man to pull Sirius closer, shushing him softly as he stroked a large palm up and down his shirt-clad back. That's all right, Bug. We're just going to wait here a few more minutes, and then we'll go upstairs. She's nearly finished. I'll be good, Sirius promised, before biting gently at Remus's throat, the man humming encouragingly, cupping the back of his head and signaling to Dorcas that he'd be over in just a minute, rolling his eyes at the teasing eyebrow wiggle she returned. Always a good boy for me, he agreed. We're going to go over to the bar, and then it'll just be a couple of minutes. Is that okay? What's your color, Bug? Sirius released the flesh between his teeth with a wet smack, easing back with the gentle tug of Remus's hands in his hair and staring up at him with reproach as he mumbled the word, green. Yeah, I'm green, he affirmed, clasping Remus's hand between his too tightly and following dutifully as the older man moved towards the bar. Soon, though? Really soon, darling. He waved at Dorcas as she left and heard the door's locks being engaged by the security guard posted outside. Well used to Remus and Lily staying over by now, security tended to lock up without consulting them on their evening plans. Can you sit here for a little bit while your Mooney counts the tills? And then we're done. In front of you, Sirius said seriously, releasing Remus to grasp tightly at a bar stool, equidistant between the two tills. Remus humming and dropping a kiss to the top of his head, walking behind the counter. Right here, Bug. Remus, trying to keep up a constant stream of chatter to distract his boy while he moved around, bringing both till drawers to sit on the bar top in front of Sirius. What do you want to do tonight? I want you to fuck me, Sirius said, petulantly, eyes wide and imploring, fixed on Remus for the man to catch as he glanced up over his wire-framed glasses. But nicely this time. Nicely. He'd show him nicely. All right, Sirius. Soon, I promise. The door closed softly behind them, and then he had Sirius pressed against the wall, shuddering moans in his ear as he bit at the taut tendons in his neck. His boy was whining, a high, fragile noise that he didn't think he even knew he was making. Oh, darling, Remus cooed, faux sympathy in his tone as he drew back. Is that good? A choked sob broke loose as he pressed one of his thighs between Sirius's, gentle friction against a painfully hard cock. He watched with hands braced against the wall, the smug smirk on his face that Sirius had said got him off firmly in place. Before him, he watched the boy crumble, devolving into a particular madness that only came from being wound up and held there for too long. He was falling under quickly, hips rolling in the cramped space between them, nails digging into the supple flesh of Remus's biceps. Mooney, Sirius begged, can we go to the bed, please? His boy. God, he was so pretty. Pulling him away from the wall and into his chest, he indulged himself with several more kisses before he set to lifting the boy so that his legs wrapped around his waist, reflexes directing Sirius's arms around his neck. The move made Sirius gasp before he reattached himself to Remus's neck, teeth sharp and tongue slick as he seated them on the bed. One cuddlebug in his lap, he allowed him to leave his marks before a gentle hand in his hair encouraged his lips to meet Remus's once more. Their kisses were languid, Sirius pliant in his arms, the boy happy now that he was getting what he wanted. His head fell back. The height advantage Sirius had on him when he was in his lap exposed the pale column of his throat to the older man, Remus licking over his Adam's apple and biting gently at his windpipe, encouraging a claiming mark to bloom in the center of his throat. His cock ached with arousal, the problem with delayed gratification being that he had been worked up all evening as well. Of course, he'd come inside Sirius and plugged him back up, but in a way that was worse, introducing him to his friends with the knowledge his boy was stoppered up, owned completely by Remus. He'd been on edge watching as Sirius dealt with his own arousal, cheeks a radiant pink, squirming ever so slightly when conversation wasn't engaging enough to distract him. He was just the perfect combination of cute and hot, especially when he looked so much like he needed Remus, when he was marked up as his. He'd never thought that he'd become so obsessed with his marks being on someone that after Fenrir broke him, he would be comfortable with having so much influence over someone so suggestible. But here he was, getting off on leaving marks on his boy, on fucking him in public, advertising to the community he and his best friends helped to create that Sirius belonged to him. A slow roll of his hips, a needy whine, and he was done. That was enough to push Remus past the point of no return. He needed to get inside his boy, wedge himself in deep until they were both shaking apart and groaning in pleasure. Rolling them over, Remus stood and began to strip, first his shirt while he towed off his brogues, all the while watching his boy wrestle with his own clothing. "Speed it up, Bug," he teased. "I want to see your pretty little cock." Sirius groaned, and Remus laughed, unbuckling his belt and kicking his trousers away, palming his erection through his underwear, and then tugging the material down lithe, scarred thighs. Cock in hand, he fisted it slowly as the younger boy's body was revealed to him, his pale chest, the smattering of hair which trailed from below his belly button underneath his jeans. Biceps corded with muscle flexed as he tried to remove his trousers in one swift move, stomach muscles tightening as he moved into a crunch before groaning and flopping back down. His beautifully thick, milky thighs that held several imprints of Remus's teeth, his fingertips. At several points over the last few months, he had wished for the summer so he could dress him in tiny little shorts, wishing for June so that he could parade Sirius through the streets of Manchester, proclaim his love for him boldly. He could imagine it now, his boy in tiny, multicolored shorts with a pride flag wrapped around his shoulders, Remus's hands taken by Sirius and Lily, James attached to his other side. Maybe Regulus would be there with them too. Dropping his hands, Remus gave in to the temptation and finished taking the tight denim off his calves. Chucking the bundle to the side, he moved to straddle Sirius on the bed. Letting his cock fall heavily onto the boy's abdomen with a smack, he leaned in to kiss him again, hands braced on either side of his head, surrounded by a messy halo of dark hair. Sirius was pinned, not that he wanted to move, but as his soft fingertips ghosted over Remus's sides, he moaned into the man's mouth, his cock blurting pre-cum against the underside of the older man's erection. "Oh dear, darling," he said quietly, watching Sirius watch him. "Is it time for me to fuck you now?" "Please," Sirius begged. "I've been so good, Mooney. So good." "You have, haven't you, my best boy?" The art of the dismount was something he'd long since mastered, and he gracefully knelt by Sirius's side as he encouraged the boy first onto his front and then up onto his knees, so that he was presenting himself. "Good boy," he praised him, wide palms smoothing over his hips. "I'm going to take your plug out now, all right? But I want you to keep my cum inside you, Bug. So once is out, you need to stay nice and tight, just for Mooney. His instructions were acknowledged with a slow nod and a just for Mooney that was muffled by bedsheets. Drizzling a little more coconut oil down the base of the plug to ease that withdrawal, he fucked it into the boy a couple of times and then began to pull it out very slowly. As his hole clenched around nothingness, he cooed soothing words and turned to drop the plug on the tissue he'd laid out. That's good. Good boy. Remus praised him. Do you want my fingers or my cock bug? Do you think you can take it? I can. Sirius pushed his hips back, meeting Remus's and causing his pulsing cock to catch on the pink rim. Your cock. Please, Mooney. All right, Bug. He stared down at Sirius's form, his hands clenched in white sheets as his little pink hole clenched in anticipation, a tiny bead of his cum resting at the surface. He couldn't muffle the groan in his chest, a low rumbling thing that spoke louder than words could. Just how much he wanted Sirius. Deep breath for me. Just relax. Mooney will fuck you full again. As he pressed inside, he heard Sirius's breath whoosh like it had been punched out of him, and he paused as he bottomed out. Are you all right, Bug? Just breathe through it, darling. I've got you. When the boy began to buck back into him, he slowly retreated and fucked back inside. Gentle, quiet movements that fit the bill of nicely rather well. At least, he thought so. The feeling of Sirius wrapped around him was incredible. He still wasn't used to it. Not the heat that came with going bare, or the unrestrained, rhythmic clenching of his hole. Harder, please, Sirius moaned, reaching back with one hand to grasp at Remus's thigh, trying with all his might to pull the man into him harder. Need it, Moons. Oh, but you wanted to be fucked nicely, didn't you, darling? He laughed a little at his boy's whine, keeping up the steady pace he'd built, brushing kisses along his spine as he worked him over. With a deep breath, he grinned to himself and wrapped one arm under his torso, twisting pebbled nipples as he sought a secure hold. And then he sat back, bringing Sirius with him. It really didn't get old. Not with the way his bug nearly shouted with delight. A week since he'd taken his virginity, and Remus had fucked him twice more in between then and now. Every time, this move had nearly broken his boy. Even with Sirius hanging onto his neck, messy kisses pressed to the underside of his jaw as he held them upright, he kept his pace steady and soft. The new angle hit his boy's prostate, and he knew from the gasping moans and the clenching of his hole around his fat cock that it was good. But he wanted to draw this out, let Sirius really enjoy what he'd waited so long for. Is that better? Better when Mooney's holding you? Both of his arms wrapped around Sirius's chest. He could feel the boy's cock slowly bouncing against his wrist in time with his thrusts. Yes, but harder, please. Mooney, need it. Need you. Those words were like a drug, sending him into a frenzy. Sirius needed him. All right, Bug, I've got you. He groaned the words into the crook of his neck, biting down hard on tendons as he pumped his hips with more force, the move causing him to press Sirius down into the bed once more. Following him down, he braced himself on his forearms and hovered above the writhing boy. Finding the right angle was an art that eventually became instinct. With Sirius, he knew he was close when he shivered, and knew he'd hit it when he screamed. The moment the boy's voice rang out loudly, he hammered his hips down in a punishing pace, resisting the temptation to come now, trying his hardest to hold off until his boy was sated as well. A barrage of Mooney, interspersed with broken moans, filled his ears, accompanied by the wet slap of skin and his own quiet groaning. They were so close, the both of them, and so he wedged one hand beneath his boy's body, grasping at his cock with loose fingers, and began to stroke him in time to the pace of his hips. You're so good for me, Bug. I'm so proud of how well you can take my cock. A little pro, aren't you? Your wet hole just sucks me right back in, darling. Knows exactly what it needs to do to keep me coming back. Sirius came with a smothered shout, face pressed into cotton, warm cum coating his hand in the vice-like grip his hole became. Remus responded with a bite to his shoulder, licking over flesh and sinking his teeth in deep, leaving a bruise that would hurt come morning. Finally, he allowed himself to get lost in his own pleasure, holding Sirius's body still beneath him and losing his rhythm completely as his climax rushed over him. Panting, he stared down at the boy's lax form, and from his vantage point, he could see half of a lazy smile on Sirius's face. His boy was blissed out, so he took the opportunity to withdraw his cock and watched his cum drool out of his hole, sloppy with slick and cum, wholly marked by Remus. With the used plug, he scooped what had escaped up and pressed it back inside, pressure that made Sirius's brow scrunch in discomfort and then sigh happily when that pressure turned to the happy, full sensation he enjoyed. "You did so well for me, love bug." He stroked damp hair away from his brow and shifted, plastering himself to the boy's back, lying down with him in soiled sheets. "I'm so proud of you. So well behaved all night, letting your Mooney fuck you downstairs, staying quiet even when I know you wanted to shout." "Not nice," the boy mumbled, making his heart skip a beat. "What wasn't nice, darling? Did you need to use your safe word?" Oh God, did he miss it? Was there a moment where he safe worded out and he didn't hear and now he'd hurt his boy without even noticing? "Mooney's not nice, making me wait so long," Sirius mumbled, pushing at Remus's shoulder until he settled on his back. Sirius climbing up on top of him with bleary eyes, settling like a frog atop his torso and burying his nose in the hollow of his throat. "I'm sorry, Bug," he sighed, relief swirling through him that it was just the delayed gratification that the boy was referring to, not a missed safe word. "It's good, though, isn't it? How powerful your orgasms are after you've been made to wait?" "Not as nice as when you make me come over and over and over. Prefer that." Remus chuckled. He could hear the pout in his voice, wrapped his arms around the boy, and shifted them until his head was resting on pillows. One hand settled on his hip, the other at the base of the plug. He resigned himself to a very messy cleanup in the morning, his boy already snuffling sleepily and suckling at his collarbone. "All right, my love," he agreed. "Next time we'll tie you up and see how much you can take. How about that?" The only response he received was a disinterested "Mph," which he took to mean, "Go away, I'm sleeping." With a chuckle, he reached for the light, dimming the room and beginning to count sheep. 3 weeks ago, he'd given Sirius permission to use his body while he was asleep. The familiar slick heat surrounding his cock as he woke up was good, but opening his eyes to see his boy lazily rocking in his lap, lower lip tightly held between his teeth, was incredible. "Good morning, Bug," he rasped, watching the boy's eyes shoot open and fix on him. He breathed, leaning down to kiss him, clearly no longer bothered about morning breath. "Needed you." "Is that right?" Sleep-warm hands grasped his hips, fingers sinking into the bruises he'd left over the last 7 days. "You look good sat on my cock, Bug, like a prince on his throne." The compliment made Sirius flush a darker shade of pink, and he began to lift himself off of Remus's shaft, moaning at the ministrations before sinking back down, settling heavily on sharp hip bones. His cock throbbing, Remus met every thrust with a punishing force, shunting Sirius and making him moan out louder, a string of "ree, falling from his lips. The telltale tightening in his belly told him Sirius had been awake for some time, fucking himself gently so he didn't disturb his Mooney. "My needy little boy," Remus cooed. "How long have you been fucking yourself, Pulling your plug out and slicking me up, sinking down so quietly." Sirius broke off his words as Remus took over, the boy holding himself still with his hands pinning Remus to the mattress as the man thrust ruthlessly into him. "You said I could. You did. You did, Mooney." "I know, Bug. I did. That's all right. You're not in trouble." He slowed his pace to reassure him. "I love when you take what you need, my confident little love bug." Good. You're a good boy." "That's right." His thrust came harder, faster as Sirius began to whine, dropping down to lay on top of Remus, their chests pressed together as his head lolled to the side. My good boy, getting himself all slick and ready first thing so his Mooney doesn't need to do any work, does he? You're so generous, darling. Thank you. Breath was rushing out of his lungs, his heart threatening to beat right out of his chest as he kept Sirius plastered to his skin. They were both close, he felt, and he worked harder, edging them towards indescribable pleasure. I love it when you're like this, my little bug, so pliant and fuckable, just for me. He was almost unaware of the words escaping him, for some reason unable to stop the constant stream of babbling that escaped him when he was close to the edge. It had never happened before, not with anyone but Sirius. Fuck, he groaned as the younger boy's hole tightened around him, pulsing as he came with a shout. Good boy, that's a good boy. Stay just like that for me. Above him, Sirius was whimpering through his climax, and he could feel the boy's saliva smearing messily along his collarbone as he mouthed at bare skin. As his pleasure subsided, his teeth found purchase in a bruise he had already worried enough it ached beautifully at the slight pressure. The intoxicating mix of pleasure and pain sent him off the deep end, groaning lowly as he came deep inside his boy, staccato thrusts eventually slowing to a stop. Panting harshly, he stroked over Sirius's hair and listened to his boy quiet humming, the sound vibrating in his chest. My Mooney loves me like this, he was murmuring to himself, seemingly unaware that Remus was listening. Just like this. You need to stay like this. And that wasn't great, for his words to be misconstrued like that. An easy fix, though. Hi, Cuddlebug, he said directly into the boy's ear, scratching his fingers across Sirius's sensitive scalp and chuckling at his shudder. There you are. You were so good for me, Sirius. Shall we go get cleaned up, darling? He appeared to think about the suggestion, mouthing at the large scar which bisected his chest while his fuzzy brain parsed the words. Bath? He asked, hopeful eyes fixed on Remus's face. With you? Smiling softly at him, Remus agreed. Once they were in the bath, Sirius lounging comfortably against his chest, Remus felt it was safe to broach the subject. How are you feeling, Sirius? Good, he answered, sounding much more alert than he had a few minutes ago, the change of scenery and the conversation Remus had been encouraging helping to bring him back up. Mostly normal, I think. Great. That's great. I wanted to talk to you about... Oh, fuck. Sirius interrupted him, sitting up so fast that the water sloshed over the sides of the tub. It was too much, wasn't it? You meant that I could suck your dick if I wanted to, didn't you? I'm so sorry, Moons. I didn't mean to... Sirius. Remus interrupted his interruption. Listen to me. I gave you blanket permission to use my body however you see fit while I am asleep. If that changes, I will let you know. I have no problem using a safe word if I wake up and I'm not in the mood for sex. His boy took a visibly deep breath with his eyes closed, exhaled, then sank back against his chest once more. I didn't fuck up then? No, Honeybug, you didn't fuck up. If anything, I did. What? Sirius asked, surprised as he processed Remus's words. How? Taking a deep breath, Remus sighed and began to thread his fingers through the wet tangle of his boy's hair. You'll have noticed by now that I tend to babble right before I come? Sometimes. Right. So that's never happened with anyone but you. His confession seemed to startle a laugh out of the boy, who twisted to look over his shoulder at Remus. Really? Uh-huh, he affirmed. Believe it or not, before you, I had a reputation for being a stoic, silent sort of dom. I wasn't that vocal in bed at all. It was something that Greyback trained out of me. Sirius made an indecipherable murmur, shifting unsteadily in the bathwater until he was seated in Remus's lap, arms around his neck as he stared into his eyes. I'm sorry, Moons. That's all right, Sirius. I just want to give you some context. Context given. Sirius nodded at him, adorable in his solemnity. Remus hummed and drew him in for a soft, sweet kiss that he pulled back from quickly, pressing kisses across the boy's face to make him giggle, aware that he was at the tail end of his submissive headspace. So? He drew the word out, brushing their noses together as Sirius laughed more. So I wanted to talk to you about what I said and how you interpreted my words. The younger boy said intelligibly. Okay. What did you say? I think it was something along the lines of how much I enjoy you being pliant and fuckable. Pfft of air rushed over his face as Sirius dissolved into more laughter, the boy apologizing as he picked himself up from Remus's chest. I'm sorry. You just sounded so funny when you said it. Your tone was so ridiculously flat. Smiling gently, Remus tried to refocus him. That's all right, darling. I'm just worried about how you interpreted the words. I heard you talking to yourself when you were coming down. You were telling yourself over and over that you needed to stay like this in order for me to love you. It's important that you know that you're wrong. I love you regardless. The boy gaped at him for 1, 2, 3 seconds before he began to sputter, eyes flickering across his face in question before he finally spoke. You love me? Like, you're in love with me? I do. I am. I love you just as you are, Bug. My lovely, weird little bitey boy. All mine. He watched as something like epiphanous wonder crossed Sirius's face, the boy bringing one hand up to his mouth and chewing on his knuckles. He hoped it was out of overwhelming joy, or else this was going to a little differently to how he'd imagined. Bug, darling, don't bite yourself. You're okay. He reassured Sirius as he tugged fingers with the imprints of his incisors out from between his lips. You don't need to say it back. I just wanted to... I do. Of course I do. Sirius babbled suddenly, his silver gray eyes meeting Remus's amber. I love you. I'm in love with you. How could I not be? You make me so happy, Remus whispered, his thumb smoothing over the harsh mark Sirius had left on his own skin. It's important to me that you know that. Sirius squeezed his eyes shut, breathing heavily as he nodded, tipping forward to tuck his head under Remus's chin. He was trembling just a little bit, and Remus pulled him impossibly closer, the warm water moving out of their way until they were so close it was like they were melding into one another. Moony, Sirius breathed. I love you. I love you too, Sirius, Remus responded, stroking gentle hands over water-slick skin. It was rather apt, he thought, that this moment would happen in the very spot their relationship had truly begun.